Hi, and welcome back to Higher Hertz. I'm Justin Leopard, your online cello teacher, here today with another lesson video for you guys. Today, it's very exciting for nerds, cello nerds like me at least. We're getting into scales. Scales are basically the foundation of all melodic music. They are the most abstracted form of what a key is, which is what all Western music pretty much is centered around a key. And the reason why I find them so exciting is because they are something that you can just practice, and you don't have to worry too much about whether the music is right per se. You're just trying to hammer into your fingers the tools that will allow you to play fast things, the tools that will allow you to play melodies without kind of screwing up in ways you don't intend, the tool that will allow you to really get into the intonation on the cello, the tools that will help you synthesize your right and left hands so that they're always working together and they're not kind of messing each other up. I mean, scales are boring in some ways and just so extremely useful in others that they're really exciting for me and hopefully for you. So today I just want to talk about what scales are, the two types of scales that you'll practice most as a cellist, and 4 different key centers that all primarily use first position that you can start practicing today. Hopefully after also doing some of our other preparatory lessons up to this point. For example, the bow hold and basic finger exercises. So what a scale is, you can think about a scale kind of being the main notes of a key. So if you're in the key of C, you're going to have certain notes that are just part of that key, and if you were to play some of the other notes, then they would be some sort of alteration, borrowed note from a different key, generally not sound as consonant or consistent with the key center that you're playing. So there's primarily two kind of flavors of keys. Major, which some people describe as happy, but I think of as more carefree or lighthearted, and minor, which some people oversimplify to say sad. I think minor keys are often more serious, more contemplative. For example, Twinkle Twinkle Little Star is in a major key. It is a more lighthearted sort of song. Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, it is in a minor key, and it sounds very serious. So the main difference between major and minor is actually one note, and it's the third. When you play a chord, you primarily are playing the main note that you're playing, a third, a fifth, and an octave. Octave meaning 8, oct 8, because there are 7 notes of the scale, and then the 8th one is the same note, but double the frequency. So this is a lot of music theory. This is a lot of jargon. We're going to come back to this, and I promise it'll make absolutely perfect sense. First, I actually just want to show you what we're actually going to be playing for a major key. So we're going to start with 1 octave. We're going to get to 2 by the end of the video. We're going to start with 1 octave D major scale. The reason we're going to start here is because it's the scale that starts from the open D string. And it is the key of the first piece that we're going to learn together, which is Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. So when you're playing a major scale, you have 2 whole step intervals, a half step, and then 3 whole step intervals, and then a half step. So that's whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half, which is something worth memorizing. I was able to reel it off, not because I'm a super genius, but because I've heard that so many times that it's like memorized. So the fingering is the same on each string. We're going to do open D, 1, 3, 4. And then we're going to do the open A, 1, 3, 4. And the reason why this works is because remember how the patterns are so similar. It's like whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. There's only one extra whole. That extra whole is the difference between the 4th finger and the open A string. So other than that, we're playing whole, whole, half between the open string and our fingers. So if you've already followed along some of our other videos, you've already been practicing with a whole bow. It's best to start out just doing 1 note per bow and work your way up to doing 4 notes per bow. So you'll start like this. all the way up and then come back down as well. And it's nice to be able to mix up, if you're starting down bow versus up bow, any sort of variations that you can make on scales, any variation of rhythm as you start getting comfortable is going to help you. So like I said, then you can move to four notes per bow, and you don't have to rush to getting it fast. Really spend the time getting the muscle memory in your fingers, taking the time to say, I don't know if that was in tune, and trying to tune to it, finding a piano reference if necessary. Just try to get it to be even and light, and don't worry too much about perfection. Just worry about kind of drilling it a bit, because just instrument is just so much about muscle memory, and you'll just save yourself a lot of headache if you're able to hammer out, what it feels like to do that. Okay, well then when you have that in a song, in a piece, you don't even have to see that as its own thing that you have to practice. You don't have to look at something that seems really hard to be like, oh my God, how do I play this specific thing? When you can look at it and say, oh, that's just part of the D major scale. I've already practiced that. Hooray. And then you just work on how to make it sound right in that context. Now, when you start feeling comfortable with the D major scale in 1 octave, the next step is to do it in 2 octaves. So we're going to go down to the C string. We're going to start with the D, that's the first finger. And again, all of these are in first position, but to get all of the keys, we're going to have to shift. So keep that in mind for the future. But all the keys today are just first position, but we will have to use an extension by going lower. So instead of all the notes being here, we're going to take the top 3 fingers, so other than the first finger, and we're just going to slide them all up by a half step. So then instead of, we have, all right, and we're going to take that hand shape and we're going to do 1, 2, 4, open, 1, 2, 4, and then we remember this, open, 1, 3, 4, open, 1, 3, 4, and then come back down, 3. Fantastic. So when we're playing a minor scale, let's talk about minor for a second. Like I said, minor, the difference is the third, which means that if we're playing a scale, it's the third note of the scale. So that means that instead of, if we want to play D minor, we're going to go back to unextended hand position, play 1, 3, 4, and then the rest of the notes the same, going up. Minor scales, when they're played in classical music, we tend to follow this formula that's a little bit strange, just in the fact that it goes up differently than it comes down. So going up, the only difference is that third note. But coming down, the 6th and the 7th notes are also lowered. Now, the reason why this is because if you take a major scale and start on a different note, you can get the minor scale. So in this case, D minor is actually the same notes as are in F major. So the F major, if we start on D but play all of those same notes, then that's actually D minor. But you might notice it sounds a little weird played that way up. You can almost tell, like, oh, that's kind of like not what I'm used to hearing, right? Not nearly as clear as in a major scale. Sounds so right. And the difference is the leading tone. So these higher notes in the scale, the ones that anticipate the 1, they're the ones that also do a lot of the work in defining what the key center is. So instead of playing, we play leaving absolutely no doubt in our minds that it is in D and not F, but minor. On the way down, however, we don't need to do this. We just play the notes that are in that. So the fingering on the way down goes 4, 2, extended 1, open, 4, 2, 1, open, 4, 2, 1, open, 4, 3, 1. Okay? Now, to get all the fingerings for these, one of the best resources that you can buy is Mark Yampolsky's book, which we'll link to below. But all of these exercises as well, hopefully what we have on screen is sufficient to help you guys get going. But definitely invest in a good scales book, the fingerings, the notes. It'll help you learn how to read music better. It'll be helpful, just as a reference to make sure that you're playing them right. So just to summarize, when we're playing the minor, we go... All right, so that's all there is for D. I want to talk about 3 other keys that we can use real quick so that if you want to be progressing a little bit beyond this, you can do it without killing yourself over shifting yet, which we haven't really covered. So the other scale is the C major scale. And for this, the fingering will start the same as it did for the 1 octave D major scale. So remember that fingering pattern, open 1, 3, 4, open 1, 3, 4. We're just gonna start down on C, baby. And then to finish it, we do open 1, 2, 4, open 1, 2. Beautiful. And you know, as you keep playing, you're going to want to also be able to practice the scales so that they go very high. And if you want to, you can already start to try to do that. All you have to remember is that the fingering that you're going to want is ideally either going to be some variation of, you know, a 1, 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 3, 4, 1, 2, 4 sort of pattern, or some sort of 1, 2, 1, 3 pattern. So if I were to keep going up, 3 fingers, 3 fingers, 3 fingers, 3 fingers, and then shift up. And then that time coming down, there were 2 times I did 2. But just try to group the notes in a way that makes sense. That's all I'll say for now. Check your scales books for fingerings that can help take you up. There's actually a universal fingering that if you never use open strings, you can use the same fingering for every major scale, which makes sense because they all have the same intervals. But you know, if you're playing C major that way, you know, you can play B major all of a sudden. Whereas B major in first position almost doesn't make sense because there's just too many weird notes. It just doesn't make quite as much sense that way. That was a little bit of a tangent. Let me just show you the final 2 that you can play, and these would be a little bit of a gap for you. If you want to start trying to shift up a little higher, even getting 2 octaves in these keys is going to require that a little bit. So that's why I wanted to show them to you guys so that you can reference this video as you keep progressing. Again, don't worry about perfection too much, and definitely just pace yourself and enjoy the process. What I'm showing you today could be something that you spend 4 months working on, genuinely. So it's okay. But I want to include these in here so there's a great reference for these videos. So the next one we'll play is F major, which we've already talked about. It's actually the same as D minor. So some of the fingering patterns that we've already discussed, we actually already know how to play. So for F, we go 4 on the C string, open G, 1, 2, 4, open 1, 2. And then that would be the octave. If you kept going, 1, 2, 4, open A string, extended first, 2, 4, and then here you just shift to 4th position, which is relatively easy to find. It's your first finger being right above where your thumb is in that little crook of the cello. I love 4th position for being so easy to find. And then you play. And then you'll want to come back down as well. So. And just try to pay attention to smoothness and balance. There's always things to learn. Even when I played this, my last note the last time did a little thing. It's whatever. That's why you practice. You want to identify those things in your practicing and work on them, figure out what caused it. It's not probably not that you'll eliminate it entirely when you're, rehearsing or performing, but that is how you will work on getting it all the more close. One more time. All right, final scale that we're going to talk about, and that is G. G is just starting on the open G string. So you'll notice that we've talked about all of the keys that start on the lower 3 strings today. That is because the way the instrument is set up, these are the ones that we have to shift the least in order to get to. So for G, it's the same pattern as the other 2 major scales. Open 1, 3, 4, open 1, 3, 4, open 1, 2, 4. And then you have to shift up 1, 3, 4. Okay, and we didn't talk about minor for every single one of these, but it is good to work out the minor and how to play it. So in this case, flat 3 going up, right? And the rest is the same. And then the next 2 notes will be flatter. So one more time, I'll do the whole thing. So there you have it, how to play major and minor scales. 4 different key centers times 2 if you think of both major and minor for you guys to work on. This is something to work on after getting posture figured out, after getting bow hold figured out, and after spending some time doing those string crossing and finger exercises from our last video. But this is going to be something that you should pretty much incorporate into your practice daily for the foreseeable future, like maybe even your whole life if you can keep doing it. Because they are the foundation of everything else you're going to be playing. And especially when combined with arpeggios, which we're going to talk about in the next video because they kind of warrant their own video, are going to be how you learn how to play every major and minor key center and are able to play any music that's presented to you, to have the foundation to do that. All right, we hope you enjoyed this lesson. Stay subscribed to Higher Hertz and hit the bell for more notifications on cello lessons. Once again, I'm Justin Leopard. You can also find some videos of me playing as the Vagabond Cellist here on YouTube. Once again, thank you guys so much for watching, and we will see you next time.